and start recording.
Okay.
That's all I have. Off to you, Lance.
Thank you, Jason. We are at the top of the hour. I call this meeting of School District 5 Board of Trustees to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda is a building update, the Ag Ed Center. Mr. Brian Bay.
All right, well, thank you. It's great to be with you all and online. So yeah, things are going great out here. And you can see the PowerPoint I take.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, so this year, we've had quite a year at the Ag Center. It's been a good year, but it's definitely had its challenges. This year we have 14 staff members. If you can believe, we have 36 classes taught at our Ag Center. That's grade through 9 through 12, of course. What's really neat that made this year special is we've brought welding 1 and 2 back to the Ag Center, and those are concurrent enrollment with FECC, and we've just had resounding success with that. So much so that we're able to add welding 3 next year, and that will be the certification side of the welding program. Along with that, we've added our veterinary science class. As some of you are well aware, we've had a veterinary science team the last 6, 7, 8 years, and now we've made that larger into an actual class. It's a year-long double period class, and we've had a lot of success with that. We've also had earth science again, and that's being offered to our freshmen. And we brought Western civilization from Glacier High School. We're offering that to our sophomores. We've had 2 student teachers this year in English and science, and we had a long-term substitute teacher with our agriculture teacher for Justin Heupel. And he's back now, and his son, Luke, was diagnosed with leukemia, but that is in remission, and Luke is doing a great job. He's doing really well. So the challenging part of the year was all 5 ag teachers were teaching new curriculum. So on top of COVID and everything else going on and trying to get our balance there, we got to learn to teach new things and figure out how to do old things differently. So yeah, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. In our ag program, and this is strictly for our ag classes, we teach ag 1 through 4, and that's from 9th grade to 12th grade, as you know. And with that, we do a unit-based instruction. And go ahead, Callie, you can flip to the next slide there. And our ag 1 through 4 is unit-based instruction. And what's exciting about that is we're able to really look at a lot of different areas in industry and develop skills that our students need. And how do we decipher that? How do we decide what our students need? I think one thing that we really take a lot of joy in, and we work really hard at, is we try and stay in touch with industry. We have an advisory council made up of 10, 11 members from around industry in the Valley. They give direction, and then all of the ag teachers are professionally involved within our organizations, not to mention that we have our own interests: construction, farming, agriculture, production ag with livestock and that sort of thing. So we read a lot of trade journals and pursue that. The vet science that we've developed this year is neat in the way that that we're able to look at different systems of the body, and we tie it to livestock. We've mainly focused on large animal livestock industry, but we have delved into small animal as well. We have some interested kids with veterinary tech, being a technician, and there's also some interest there with our students going on to pursue a doctor of veterinary medicine. So it'll be exciting to see what those kids do as well. One of the things that with that unit-based instruction that's really important is if you you know of our commodities. We raise hay, cereal grains, canola. We have cattle, sheep, hogs. Our greenhouse, it's 30 by 80, 2,400 square greenhouse. And a lot of you have supported us and purchased our flowers in that way. It really makes a difference with our kids that they're actually learning skills. We're making financial decisions that have an impact on the bottom line, and they can see that. You know, for example, teachable moment this year, we raised calves. There's a photo there. The next slide, you'll see our calves. We have a little feedlot in the spring when we wean calves. We had 14 calves, and you know, we got off on feeding, and we fed too much, and one of our calves died of acute onset acidosis, and that was $1,000 right there in that loss. And as painful as that is, and it's the first calf at that age right before we send them to market that we've lost in the 19 years I've been here. But it was, you know, it's good to bring that in with our records and talk to the kids, and this is what happens when we make mistakes. This isn't just a theoretical world that we live in. So on the bottom left-hand side of the slide that you see right there is our canola, in case you're wondering about the yellow flower, canola there. And then on the middle photo that you see is our tractor, and that's like our hay barley that we raise for another commodity that we can sell or feed to our own livestock. So I think our kids are really getting well-rounded education that they need to go into industry, whether it be agriculture or the trades. We've been really fortunate with our Kalispell FFA chapter this year. Of course, we haven't been able to do as many things as we would have liked, but we've still traveled. We still had our spring award ceremony we had on a Friday evening instead of our big banquet. We gave out somewhere between right around $15,000, $12,000 to $15,000 in scholarships. And what was neat this year was we weren't able to do Angel Tree through Salvation Army, but instead, if you look on the left-hand side there, the photos is with Flathead Food Bank, and we gave out meals during the holiday season. And so we had our FFA kids that wanted to, they were able to volunteer there and to serve others in our community. And on top of all that, at our state convention that we had, we just did really well. We're really pleased with the kids. We had 2 state championship teams, parliamentary procedure and ag sales. And Miss Trutzel coaches the ag sales team. This is her 3rd year. And she just had, oh my gosh, she had a record year, record kids involved. And they won. They'll be going to nationals. And once again, Justin Heupel rocked it with his parliamentary procedure team, and I don't even know how many times he's won state championships with his team, and they'll be going in the fall. For the first time, as far as we can remember, we had Riley Glim win the state FFA creed speaking event, and that was huge. And we were chosen as top 3 chapter in Montana. I think they got it wrong. I think we're the best chapter, but I'm very biased in that opinion. So where are we going? Where are we going? What's next for 2021? And I think this is really important, is we're here to serve others. That's what this ag program is. That's why we've been here at this location for 78 years. We serve others, and we're going to serve our students. We're going to serve Flathead High School, Glacier High School, and we're going to serve our community in whichever form and whatever opportunity that comes along. We're excited that we're adding a 6th ag teacher because of the growth that we've sustained over the last couple of years. We'll have a 6th ag teacher. Callie Knutz is a rock star ag teacher from Chester. She is one of our a student from Glacier High School, and so she'll be starting this fall with us. We're adding social studies for Flathead High School, so we'll have a full-time Western Civilizations teacher for Melanie Dardis, and she'll be out here for next year. We're going to add that welding 3 class as a welding certification program. So students, they do welding 1, which is introduction, and then welding 2 is project based, and then welding 3 is that certification program project that industry needs so much. And then we're excited. We're really going to try and add precision ag with John Deere Green Star guidance system. So that's what we have on deck for next year, just to give you a mere glimpse of what goes on out here. So there you go, Beth, 9 minutes and 51 seconds. Any questions?
Hey, Brian, this is Lance.
Hey, Lance.
Great to hear that that remodel seems to be working, that you filled it up already.
Oh my God, we're full next year. Hey, we need more. We need a bigger building. Could you guys do something about that? You know? So yeah, we're going to be full next year. So we're excited. That means
I was curious, were you able to live stream like the lamb birth, the sheeping or the lambing?
Great question. I did not get that online. So that's still to be done. So
okay.
yeah.
All right. Next year,
But
let us know.
We do have quite a few students out here though, in person, now that we have the facilities, and so.
Okay. What do you see as the 10-year project? What's next for you out there?
What's next out there? I think what's next is we're gonna try to have that 7th ag teacher so we can help more kids. I think that's possible. I think what's next is hopefully we'll work everything out with our county commissioners and the purchase of this farmland and this legacy project that we have going. And I think what's next is we're gonna be impacting our community, and we're gonna be serving our kids and helping parents along the way to help change lives for the better. So.
All right. Great work, Brian.
Well, thank you. It's a great place to work, and there is so many people involved in this endeavor that we call agriculture, that it is not just 5 ag teachers, that's for sure. So thank you, you guys.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Begg?
Hi, Lance, I do. Hi, Brian, this is Kim Wilson.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, I have a quick question. For a student who's interested in veterinarian or vet science, does the program help them get into like an internship at a veterinarian actual site?
So great question. Yes, it can. This year we call that, FFA loves acronyms. And so we call it supervised agricultural experience. Every kid that's at the ag program needs to have some tie in some ag area. And so those students that are really interested in veterinary science, we can get them in contact with a couple local veterinarians that are hiring. LaSalle Vet being one of them. We have several of our students doing that this year. So.
Okay, great. Oh, that's good to know. All right, thank you.
Yep.
And I see Amy Waller has a question as well.
Hi, Amy.
Amy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry. Brian, I was wondering, with these new classes you're getting and the growth that you're experiencing, are you able to combine the interest of the students that maybe want to do IB or AP or have honors classes with their interest in ag? I know when my kids went, when Linda went, it was a hard choice because there weren't those options. I'm wondering what you're seeing in terms of that progression.
Yeah, so this AP and IB classes, if they are just taking standalone classes, we have students that are attending the Ag Center. But if they're full IB, they're not able to in their junior, senior year. They just don't have the time. So we haven't been able to get over that hurdle. But if they are just taking individual classes, we do have students that are able to do both.
Great, thanks.
Rebecca?
Hey, Brian, it's Rebecca Linden. So when you had put in that beautiful new welding shop, you talked about maybe the possibility of adult ed there at some point. Is there anything in the idea for that yet?
So I don't see why we couldn't do it. It's just a matter of getting up and running and getting our instructors their feet under them. And then it's just finding the interest if the instructors would want to teach that. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we're definitely not opposed to it. I think it, anytime we have people in their building using their resources to learn something new is always a great idea. So it's just finding the instructors.
And Brian, if I remember right, there's a welding showcase coming up.
Yeah, Rich Dara has set that up. And that is going to be, I think the week, is it June 2nd, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but it is coming up. I think it's June 2nd. Yes. So you'll be able to see some of the projects that the students have done and get a tour of the shop in action.
Okay.
So,
And that's open to everybody.
it is. Yep. Come on out. Absolutely. And for that matter, anytime you guys have interest or want to see what's happening, boy, feel free to stop in. So.
I'll have to take you up on that, Brian. It'll be cool to see the completed project.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I mean, it is a wonderful machine, and it is the Ag Center. We view it as a machine, and it was built the right way, and it is doing everything that we hoped it would do. So all
Excellent.
that hard work paid off.
Excellent. I appreciate all your effort on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great night, Brian. Keep up the good work.
Oh yeah, you bet. Thanks, you
Lance,
guys.
we have a
Oh,
public
we have-
comment
yeah, we
hand
do.
up.
All right, Mr. Pandina.
Sean, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Brian, I just had
Hi.
a quick one. Your welding 1, 2, and 3, are those full year programs? So if a student wanted to actually take welding 3, they'd have to start their freshman or sophomore year? Do I have that right?
So the way it works is they're double period for the semester, and the welding 3 class, which we don't offer right now because we have to get kids trained up to be able to do that. They can take welding 1, and they take welding 1, then they do welding 2, and then they can take that welding 3. So, yeah.
And those are year-long programs, each one.
They're semester. They're a semester-long class, but double period.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, yeah, you bet.
Okay.
So.
Thanks for catching that, Jason.
The college credit is given, concurrent enrollment is with welding 1 and welding 3. And so we've matched up to follow their curriculum, but welding 2 is not. And we visited with FVCC in depth, and we really believe it's important for our kids to be able to build projects, design a plan, read a plan, and then try to build it, and FVCC didn't quite have a curriculum that matched our vision there, but we're all in agreement. It works well, and it's working good, and our kids are going to be stronger for it. So we have a great relationship with FVCC. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Have a good
You
night.
bet. Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Bye.
All right. Next on our agenda is the work study topic, and our presenters are Micah Hill, Bill Sullivan. A COVID update.
Good evening, trustees. Yes, we're going to do a little more extended COVID update, covering a lot of topics tonight. We're going to share a fair amount of data with you from the county, from the school district, and then talk about a couple of key issues. But also, this is kind of a precursor to some recommendations and discussion that we're likely going to have at the June 8th board meeting. So Bill and I are both going to tag team this a little bit, and I'm going to let Bill start with the data.
Thanks, Micah. Good evening, everybody. So these first few slides are going to be a lot of data that comes from the county, from Joe Russell, who shares this with us. I'm going to look also, you'll be seeing me gaze off on probably on top of the camera because I have the presentation on my screen as well. It's a little bit bigger for me to see. The first one is new cases over time. Since November 1st, they have a 14-day moving average that is on there. So you see the little dotted line, which is the average of new cases for the 14 days prior to that day. The bars indicate all the new cases on that day in the county. The next slides will go similar with the information, but month to month. So that first slide there is January. You can see on the bottom that the average daily count of new cases in January was 47.6. You can tell per day there how many, approximately how many were there, and you can see the trend line or line of best fit in January, certainly on a downward trend, which is good. I would also like to note, as you look through these particular slides, that the scale on the left is not the same in every case. The slide prior to that went all the way up to 140, so it kind of depended on, what the maximum number was. So I don't want to mislead anybody with the slides that are there. February average count of 33.6, so a little bit less than in January. But again, a trend line there that is moving down with a couple days that were certainly more cases than others. March looked very good. It was probably when we were, November and December were probably the months that the Valley and the schools were at their highest peak. March was one of those ones where we kind of, I think, started feeling a little more secure and numbers were going down. You'll notice on the left there, we're only up to 35 on the total number of new cases. Really 32, I think, was the max in that month. So certainly a pretty good month, and the trend line still going down. April was a little bit different. A few more cases. A few more cases on more days than in the previous month. This would be the only one since November that the trend line was actually rising instead of falling. You'll see in the next month, which is the current month we are in, we're back down on somewhat of a falling trend line once again, but it gives us a pretty good idea of where we've been over the course of this school year. The next slide is the positivity rate versus the total amount of tests. And this can be interpreted a lot of different ways. I'm going to just kind of give you the nuts and bolts. If you look at, early November, the orange line is the total number of tests given in the Valley or in the county. And then the blue line would be the positivity rate. So the orange line's y-axis is on the right. So there were more than 3,000 on this first dot, more than 3,000 tests that were given, and we had a positivity rate somewhere up at that 16-17% range. As you notice, the number of tests that when they go up, certainly the positivity rate came down, and that would be expected. You would expect something like that to happen, but over the course of time, you can see as that total number of tests decreased, the total number of positivity rate also decreased. And then we get into April and May, or more of May, I guess, when the total number of tests is now, getting around to that 1,000 mark, and certainly the positivity rate is back on top of the number of tests that are given, which would also be expected in data when you look at something like this. Just so you're aware of the vaccines administered, according to the county, these are the different locations and how many have given out dose 1, how many have fully immunized, and then the organization's grand total. So in the Flathead County, we have over 48,000, almost 49,000 vaccinated with either 1 dose or 2 doses. The next slide shows us the percent immunized by age group. It goes from 12 to 17, which certainly is our lowest. They've just started to be vaccinated. And then you can see the different age groups as we get up, and certainly the ones that are probably most at risk, you're above 60s up into the 80-year-olds are the highest percentage, which is probably a pretty good thing. As we get into the next slide, this is the case count by age group versus the percentage of that age group vaccinated. So the vaccine percentage is the orange line, the case count is the blue line. 18 to 29-year-olds as of May 14th, well, from March 1st to May 14th, it looks like just a little over 20% of them were vaccinated. The number of cases were at 195. You can see that as you increase with age, the vaccine percentage increases, and then the number of positive cases decreases as that increases, which you would expect as well if the vaccine and things were working. And as the valley kind of gets to herd immunity. The next part of the slide are going to be the three graphs that you always see from us. I just took the totals off of these ones as of last week. Kalispell Public Schools had 8, and that's a little bit higher just because of those kiddos that we find out later than the day we post. So active cases, we had 8 in students, 0 in staff. We have about a total of around 580 total positive cases for students and staff within our school district. The next slide is the quarantine cases. Last week we had 11 students, 1 staff member, certainly a lot more quarantine cases than positive cases, which is expected too. And just to make a note, as the school year went on and as we quarantined kids and as the CDC changed, the amount of kids we were quarantined at the beginning of the year and through December was far more than the ones that we're doing as we finish the school year. So we're hoping not as many kids are being quarantined. They're not this time of year, which is a good thing as well. The next slide is the SD5 data compared to the county positives. And this is that slide that everybody sees that just kind of tells the school district what their trend is. Our highest cases certainly in November and into December. And then as the county came down, ours came down as well. So those are the spreadsheets with the data on it. Before we get into these other topics, is there any questions on any of those? All right, so we did host at the last school board meeting. I believe Rebecca asked if we were going to host any vaccine clinics. We did start to host the vaccine clinics in our schools last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe. We had a vaccine clinic at Glacier High School. There was some public outcry to the district hosting the vaccinations, and we wanted to make sure that you had the same information as school board members as we have. There were some people challenging the administration and the board's authority. They were saying that the schools were pushing and requiring the vaccinations. And then there was a lot of stuff on social media that I believe was misinformation. And we just want to make sure that we are giving our public and certainly you guys as school board members the right stuff and information. So school board policy 3410, which is the next slide, says that student health physical screenings and examinations can be done by the board, and you can arrange this each year for health services. And those services may include, but not limited, the following bullet points. That last one is certainly immunizations that are provided by the Department of Health and Human Services. But those last 2 bullets are pretty important. Parent and guardians will receive written notification, and parents or students can opt out of any invasive examination or screening. So this next slide is the slide that has the email that went out to all our District 5 families and our staff. It kind of indicates, and this was done in partnership with KRMC, this message. I wanted them to write the message, but I wanted to be a part of it to make sure that the correct information was in. It said where the vaccine clinics were. The second paragraph, it says participation in the clinic is voluntary. It gives you the ways that you can sign up. And then that last paragraph talks about a parent and guardian consent. And then there's the contact phone number to call if they had any questions. I think it's also important to note that it was understood by both us and Kalispell Regional Medical Center that we were a site only for them, that we were not going to participate in any of the shots in any way, but we would certainly let them use our sites to hold their vaccine clinics in hopes that families would have a easier chance in the evening to do so. Another note that I think is important is the vaccine clinics at both high schools started after the school day was over. The next slide talks about the joint guidance, a little press release from the Montana Office of Public Instruction and the Department of Health and Human Services. It talks in there about school officials and providing the appropriate documentation about parent consent, that they encourage school administrators to proactively communicate with parents and legal guardians if they choose to host a vaccine clinic at their site. That was followed up on May 19th, not too long ago, from a memo from the state superintendent, L.C. Arntzen, that said that, and you can read through that, but at the bottom of this particular page, it says, in the light of changing occurring across the state as we move to the 21-22 school year, OPI strongly recommends that school districts across Montana rescind or allow to expire the existing face covering mandate. She also says, going into the next page in the next slide, that she would be okay with the removal of these mandates immediately if that was so chosen. Once this went out, there was another press release from the Montana chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. The top of this sheet talks about, they have some data in there from their experiences and what they do with the vaccine and how they treat it. And this information was given to Governor Gianforte before. The bottom of it is now this letter is being written in response to OPI's memorandum. And then that next slide that Callie just scrolled to says that we emphasize with the desire to return to normalcy. However, they believe it's in the best interest that our kids stay in masks until the school year is over. So what does that mean for next year? And what does next year look like as we go through this? I'm going to kind of pass the baton to Micah and let him talk through the rest of this.
Sure.
Hey, Micah, before you start, I'd just like to ask the trustees if there's any questions for Mr. Sullivan as we look at the data. Okay. We'll wait for public comment till after the presentation. All right. Thanks, Micah.
Sure. It looks like Amy had a question.
Amy.
She had her hand up there for a minute.
Yes, Amy. Amy.
Yeah, I just wanted to also ask Bill, the CDC also is still recommending masks for schools. Is that true?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So I think we need to be prepared to have this discussion at the next board meeting. And I wanted to put this information in front of our trustees tonight to give you time between now and 2 weeks from now on some things to consider and to contemplate maybe what my recommendations would be and perhaps what hesitations you may have. And, you know, clearly these are board decisions. And so the things that I wanted to talk tonight about were the Unforeseen Emergency Declaration. We'll go into that. The 1900 Policy Series, the pandemic operational guidelines and phases that we're operating with, and then any memorandum of agreement that we have with our current associations. because all of those things play a pretty big role in our decision-making process. So I'd like to start with the Unforeseen Emergency Declaration. And I thought I spent a lot of time making these slides really beautiful. And then I see on the presentation from Callie, the words kind of get cut off on the left-hand side. But so on April 28th, so remember we closed down schools in March of last year. On April 28th, the board declared an unforeseen emergency. And this was in keeping with the declaration of emergency from the state. And that declaration is set to expire on June 30th of this year. Because there's still elements of the pandemic that are still out there and not really having a crystal ball on what next year is going to look like, it was recommended by the Montana School Boards Association that we continue to have the emergency declaration in place. And this primarily helps preserve funding for schools should something happen. So I'm going to be optimistic and say that there's not going to be a whole lot that's going to happen that we can't be prepared for. But for whatever reason, if there was just a massive spike in cases or something like that, and we had to close schools down, this is what preserves the funding for the district, provided that we're still offering educational services. So it's going to be my recommendation that the board would at the June 8th meeting would continue to declare another unforeseen emergency for the 21-22 school year. Any questions on that? All right, moving on. The next thing I think that we need to keep in mind is the 1900 policy series. This was a series of policies. We adopted a few of them last spring, and then we pretty much adopted the full range of policies that were developed by MTSBA in response to the pandemic, federal law, state orders, administrative rules of Montana, those kind of things. And those policies are actually in effect until they're voted on by the board to terminate the policies. And again, at this time, there doesn't appear to be a need to do that. Some of those policies are actually, some of the language in some of those will actually be moved into Montana code. And so we're going to see some policy updates in our normal policy series that reflect those changes. But at this time, I would also recommend that we continue to leave those. But again, that's up to the board to decide if there would be a reason to not continue those policies moving forward. And there's the recommendation.
That's pretty easy. That's pretty easy.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was the pandemic operational guidelines and phases. If you remember, we and I'm going to just say Bill helped create a document that kind of summarized what our actions would be as far as a district. We broke it out into 4 phases. We were working with different phases from the CDC, from OPI, from a variety of groups. And we ended up coming up with kind of our bullet point on this. And phase 0 was just basically assuming that schools were closed and this is how we were going to operate. Phase 1 was also looking at potential short-term closures, even a long-term closure for schools. But when we opened up school in the fall, we opened up in phase 2. If you want to scroll down to the next slide, Callie. And that is the phase that we have operated in all year to the greatest extent that we could. And in doing so, we were trying to follow CDC guidelines. We were trying to follow county health department recommendations, also working with our COVID advisory council, which included doctors and nurses and epidemiologists, so a variety of stakeholders in that. And then phase 3, we never really got to this year. And if you want to scroll down just a little bit, Callie, I kind of blew those up. I know they're hard to read for everybody, but in phase 2, we were really limiting group size, Food service was on site, but also available remotely for those who were remote. We had to change things up. We're handing, lunches out in plastic bags, and kids were eating in the classrooms and doing a lot of different things. Our hand sanitizing station set up at every entrance, doing a lot of sanitizing. We were also at one point, we were under the governor's order for requiring face coverings, but if you'll recall, the board had actually adopted required face coverings the day before the governor announced that. Since then, Governor Gianforte has said he isn't requiring face masks, but he did say in his guidance that schools should continue to follow CDC guidelines, things like that. We had pretty limited activity participation in terms of traveling and going out of county and limiting the number of kids. And there were just a wide variety of things that we tried to cover through the phases. And then in phase 3, when you look at that, there are a lot of things that still remain, in terms of some practices. We're still going to ask parents to screen their kids before they send them home or before they send them to school. We're still going to recommend that there's hand sanitizing at the entries, that we're still doing hand washing and doing those things. Probably the biggest things in phase 3, group sizes can be expanded. So there's no limits on group sizes. So things like assemblies and classrooms coming together and doing a variety of those things, all of those would be allowed under phase 3. Face coverings would be at the discretion of the individual and per CDC guidelines. I think one of the things that's challenging right now is that the CDC guidelines are changing all the time, and we're having to adapt, and every time something comes out, it creates new questions and things for the district to consider. But we would also, parents being able to come in and volunteer in the classroom, extracurricular activities, having the ability to go, out of town and to cross-conference competitions. Students and staff would be allowed to have school-related travel. Field trips would be allowed again, all of those things. So it would, in reality, it's returning to as close to normal as we could in the district. You can go to the next slide, Callie. So I am going to recommend to the board that at the June 8th meeting that we move to phase 3 of our pandemic operational guidelines effective June 14th. And I want to talk a little bit about why the recommendation, and that rationale is on the next slide. So part of it is, we had talked early on when staff were allowed to be vaccinated. That started April 1st. June 14th puts us 2 months well out of that. I do know staff members who just as recently as last week got their first vaccine. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Some of them didn't want to be in line ahead of someone else who maybe needed it or felt it was more critical for them to have access to it. But we feel like there's been ample time for staff who wanted to be vaccinated. I think too, with the advent of students, children ages 12 and up at this point being able to be vaccinated, it sounds like there's going to be an emergency use authorization for kids younger than 12 years old coming out late summer, early fall as well. We have lower case counts, as evidenced by our county data, our district data. I've had countless conversations with Joe Russell, with John Cole, who's the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, our COVID advisory council, our other superintendents across the valley and across the state. We know that there is relatively low risk of complications and hospitalizations, and that information is being shared by our hospital and our county health department. I don't think you're ever going to get, you know, Joe Russell, and I'm speaking for him, but I don't think you're ever going to get him to say that, you know, masks aren't going to be a priority for transmission. But Joe has really been focused on vaccinations, and he sees that as probably being the greater key to this. You know, we've also had some anecdotal feedback from other districts that have done away with their mask requirements. There has not been a whole lot of adverse effects from that. But I also am aware of school districts that didn't have one case for 164 days of the school year and then end up with 15 cases and having to close down their schools in the last 2 weeks of school. So those are some of the reasons for the rationale for the recommendation. I think some of the potential drawbacks that we've identified, you know, I don't really know if it matters what phase we're in. There's nothing that's going to be risk-free. And part of our job in protecting the district and looking at liability is, you know, what level of risk is acceptable. And there's certainly going to be, I'm going to guess that I'm going to get some pushback. There are going to be people who adamantly think that we need to continue wearing masks. Everybody should be wearing them. But I'm not sure that that is where we want to be. It's hard to predict what the guidance from the CDC is going to look like. You know, we tell ourselves, and we argued even with the quarantines and the different things that we were dealing with early on, that, you know, the kids that we were quarantining were not were not converting. They weren't getting sick or getting COVID as a result of being close by and in a mask. And then some of those things have changed over time. And so we really don't know what that's going to look like. They could come back in the fall and say, yep, nobody needs to wear masks. So hard to know that. We also don't have a crystal ball for knowing what the outcomes of the decision is. You know, and my hope would be that that we're going to, you know, weather this and do well. I think we're still going to end up with positive cases of COVID next year, and there's still going to be quarantines, and there's still going to be those kind of things happening, but not with the frequency and duration that we've experienced this year. I think we have to consider, you know, the families and staff who are health compromised. You know, there are some people who potentially have are health compromised, but don't want to get the vaccine for whatever reason. And that's certainly not our job to push that, but it is something to consider. And then we also have MOAs with the associations that expire on June 30th. And you'll notice my recommendation suggested June 14th. We do have some employee groups that continue to work throughout the summer, but we also have some employee groups that work a day or two after school gets out for the students. So we've had conversations with certified custodial classified leadership, and they're comfortable with the recommendation. It would mean that we would have to have an agreement on what the expiration date of those MOAs are. But that is, those are some of the potential drawbacks. And I know there's others, and I know there's other reasons, you know, for why the recommendation, but I wanted to share that with the board tonight and have an opportunity for us to talk about that prior to the June 8th board meeting. Some of the things that I think we need to look at in terms of the operational guidelines and phases is some metrics. You know, we can make the recommendation and approve it, but I also think there needs to be some ability for administrative prerogative to move back in phases based on recommendations from our health officials. You know, and we said that early on with the original phases that we adopted, and those could be things like increased hospitalizations, staffing shortages due to COVID, you know, and you know, there's some concern out there about what this summer is going to bring to our community with people traveling from literally all over the globe to come to beautiful Kalispell, Montana, and share our environment. So there could be some late summer, early fall community indicators that would require us to come back and address it. But I think we always have the ability to come back and look at things from that district lens.
Hey, Micah,
Yes, Lance.
question. Are the ESSER funds going to be contingent upon following the CDC guidelines?
You know, there is some aspect of that. I did talk with our school boards association. You know, we're still going to have to demonstrate that we are doing things to mitigate the spread of COVID. So hand washing, watching your distance, sanitizing, masks optional, those all would be things that we're doing to work on those mitigation strategies. So I think if you were to ask MTSBA, they would say, do not abandon everything and just return to school as normal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Amy, do you have a question?
Yes, Micah, or maybe Bill, if the masks are optional, has there been, I guess, any discussion or any data that says that a person who's concerned that, you know, let's say a person that's hoping that everybody does wear masks, but that's not going to happen. Can that person wear a double mask? And is that data true that they are in fact pretty protected from those that are not wearing masks?
I would say yes to that question, but the quality of the mask and the frequency with which it's changed, you know, I think the medical community would certainly recommend an N95 for those most at risk. But again, that's, you know, I think it's going to depend. You know, there wasn't a lot of, I think if early on, if the medical community and the CDC thought that everybody should be wearing N95s, that's probably what they would have recommended, but that wasn't the case.
All right. Other trustees, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. This as well. Hey, Mike, as I recall, Bill's position was temporary. What are we going to be doing to cover when his position ends for next year?
Well, Will, I was waiting to surprise Callie. I'm kidding. You know, Will, between myself and the two assistant superintendents, plus the support that we get from Sarah Cole and Tracy and the rest of the central office staff, we'll continue to have those bases covered.
Rebecca?
Has there been any discussions about splitting the elementary and the high school in terms of this decision? You know, the high school students are now eligible for vaccines starting 2 weeks ago. So in 4 weeks or so, they could have been fully vaccinated. But the elementary students may not be fully vaccinated until a month into next year. So it might be a slightly different situation.
You know, I have not thought of it as being an elementary and or high school decision. I think approaching it from the district perspective makes the most sense. I understand what you're saying about the vaccine, but you know, the uptake on vaccines for younger individuals is not great. And even in that 12 to 17, 18-year-old range. Some of the other things I think that factor into that, Rebecca, is looking at the data around complications and risks of COVID with that particular age group. And I spoke specifically to John Cole, the pediatrician who is the head of the Montana Academy chapter of Pediatrics. And he said that he did not think that requiring masks of everybody in the fall was going to be a necessity. That if people wanted to wear them as an option, they could support that. And the hospital folks said the same thing during our COVID advisory council as well.
Thank you. Sue?
Yeah, thanks, Lance. My question is, in moving to phase 3, would it be possible for an individual teacher to require masks in their classroom?
No.
Okay. And I'm glad we're having this discussion, by the way.
Other trustees? Okay.
Oh, this is Diane. Hey, Mike, I really, I appreciate all the time you're putting into this, and I appreciate getting it 2 weeks in advance. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. It's not an action item, but I'd be curious to have a public comment. We'll limit that to 3 minutes. Let's
we
see,
go.
Mr. Pendino.
Yep. Go ahead, Sean, you can unmute.
Hello. I have a couple questions since I had to wait till the end. Is there any way you could scroll back up to the slide that showed the board the policy that was allowing the vaccination in the schools? It was way up there when Bill was talking. There it is. Okay, so it says right there, the board may arrange each year for those things. So when did the board actually vote to have the vaccine clinics in the school? Because right there it says the board is in charge of that, not the administration.
Sean, those are administrative prerogatives once it's established in board policy. There are a number of things that happen every year that the board doesn't vote on specifically.
Okay. Well, that's not the way it actually reads, so it seems to me to not follow that policy. It says the board may arrange. Doesn't say that the board may.
I'll just say that I did talk to our legal counsel. They are in concurrence with me with the interpretation of the policy as it is written, and that it is an administrative prerogative once the board says it's okay.
Okay. And then you recommended that the emergency be extended a year to keep the funding going. Mm-hmm. Later on, you said as long as you're following guidelines, which is washing hands, and actually you said and optional face coverings in that same sentence. Why would you you still have to keep the emergency going, or your ESSER funding ends? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We just know that there's a component of it that's tied to it, similar to the funding that the state is receiving through the ARP funds. So if Governor Gianforte lifted his emergency declaration, the state could be facing the exact same type of consequence as far as funding goes.
Okay, and then I think the board already voted to do all in-person learning next year with no option of remote, if I'm not mistaken. And that is phase 3. So to me, the board has already implemented starting next year, obviously, a phase 3 situation.
Actually, what the board adopted was a 2-tiered approach with the idea that we would start with trying to do only in-person instruction, knowing that we may have a fallback to accommodate students.
And I'm going to say that's 3 minutes now. It's supposed to be comments, but we'll chew up the time with questions too, I guess. Heather, okay. You have 3 minutes.
Go ahead and unmute, Heather. Yep.
Can you hear me? Bill, I wanted to thank you for your slides. I like watching the data on the slides. Kind of puts numbers into a good vision. What I would really like to see also, though, is if you could show us some data also showing how many children in the Valley were hospitalized due to COVID this year. And I'd also love to see a slide with data showing how many children, I mean, even in the state of Montana, let alone Kalispell, have we lost due to COVID? Just so we can wrap our head around really how dangerous this is for our children when we're going to be talking about removing this mask mandate. because I think we have a lot of public also that are struggling with the thought of getting a vaccine or not getting a vaccine for their children. And I think it's important to throw out there and show really and truly how our children were affected by this. So if we could see some of that data would be great as well. And that's it. Thank you.
You bet. I'll do my best, Heather, to try to find that out. It's nothing that has been shared, but certainly something we can look into.
Thanks.
All right, trustees, any other questions? Well, thank you, Mike. I look forward to our next meeting and having a further conversation about that. Monthly financial reports. Gwen, this is you.
Good evening. Yes, this is me. So, Callie, we'll start with the budget report, and you've seen this monthly. What I would say is that we're on target to end the year pretty much right where we predicted, which is a good thing when you're operating on a budget. So you see the high school, the elementary report and the high school report, and many of you have seen it many times, and so I'm not going to read it to you. But again, I think we're going to land right where we planned on landing at year end, which is just right around the corner. So Kelly, if you want to go to the cash flow report, and it's the report that probably at a glance you can tell if there are any serious issues. And so we scroll down to the next page, you see the balances as of the end of April. You see a few numbers there in the negative. The retirement fund, which is not unusual because we only get 2 allocations of revenue in the retirement fund, because the retirement fund is levied at the county level, and they transfer money to us just twice a year. So we'll be fine. Let's go back up to that middle page there, Callie, thank you. And then the other 2, which you often see in the negative, are the internal service fund, which is our print shop. Next month, you'll see that at 0 by June 30th for sure. And then the self-insurance fund is in the negative, but we're going to look at that report next and talk a little bit about some good news that we have in the area of health insurance. But nothing on this report that would cause concern for the financial position of the district. So thank you, Kelly. I think next up is the food service report, and good news on it as well. Let's go with the first one there, Kelly. Well, we can talk about this one, then we'll go to the other one. So this is some information that had been requested a couple of times, and it has to do with the fact that our food service department also provides meals to some of our independent elementary partners. And so we provide meals to Cayuse Prairie, to Helena Flats, Fairmont Egan, Smith Valley, and Trinity Lutheran School. And so we're just taking a look here at, is that financially feasible? And as you can see from this report, it is. Our expenditures for those programs, $131,000. And then the revenues that are gained from those independent elementary partners is $152,000. So actually a total of 164. So we make a little bit of money on that service. And it certainly is not our goal to make a profit, but we definitely also do not want to lose money on that offering. But we bring these contracts forward once a year, and as you can see, we are doing a little better than breaking even. So that service that's provided to our partners is not a negative to Kalispell Public Schools. So if we want to go back, Kelly, and look at the first report there. So as we've talked about many times, the goal of food service. Okay, go back again. We're not quite there under the food service one, first report. So under 60, there you go, Kelly, thank you. The food service department goal is to operate on the revenues that we bring in on an annual basis. We do not want to be in a position where we're having to take education dollars out of the general fund to subsidize the food service department. So I would say that Jana Graham, who is our director, is very focused on making certain that we are able to operate the program on the revenues that we receive. And at the bottom right-hand corner of this report, you can see that through April, our revenues are ahead of our expenditures to the tune of about $220,000. And that is actually significant and an excellent report from the food service department. And we have a couple more months to go. It's a bit of a challenge when the rules change, and they changed several times in over the last 18 months, in that all students could eat free, and then we're back to students having to pay for meals, and then we're back to all students eat free. And kind of the challenge there is that the more students that we have participating in the program, the better off we'll be, because the federal reimbursement is less than what parents would pay if they're paying for students' meals. So we're just constantly trying to work that balance, encouraging children to take part in this service. And Jen has done a great job this year. We have gotten word that the free meals for students will continue through the next fiscal year. So through next June, and that's good, and it's good to know it this far in advance. And so we just continue to put the word out that these meals are available and that all children eat free. So good news on the food service report there. And then finally,
Hey, Gwen, real quick on the food service.
Yes.
I know prior to our redistricting the elementary schools, 3 or 4 of our schools qualified as free and reduced poverty schools that got the free federal reimbursement. In a couple of years, will we be able to collect enough data to qualify some of our schools again?
You know, we collect the data all the time, Lance, and so we're looking at it. We also use that data for other, like our title programs. The OPI uses that data to determine qualifying for a variety of other programs and also for our E-rate. So we do continue to collect the data, and of course review it each spring. I think in March is the time frame that we're to look at that and determine whether or not we qualify for the CEP program, which is a program that allows all students to eat free of charge. And as we've looked at it over the last couple of years since we built Rankin and redistricted our schools, we did a really good job of leveling the student population in each of the buildings. And that wasn't necessarily the best interest of the food service program, because kind of all of our buildings are right at the same level of poverty. So, I mean, that's a double-edged sword, but I think it's a positive thing, and we do continue to look at it all the time, and we continue to try to collect the data, even though there isn't really necessarily a good reason for parents to complete the paperwork. We try to encourage them to do that so that we can use that information for some of the other grant opportunities that come around. So yeah, we look at it every spring in March.
Thank you, Gwen. And then I see Rebecca's got a question for you.
Yeah, Gwen, the people who get free and reduced lunch, usually that's how we figure out if they also get free busing. So if we have free lunch for all, do they have to fill out a separate form for free busing, or are parents being made aware of that, or how does that work?
You know, I haven't had that conversation with Danny, but I suspect in those cases, we would encourage the parents to complete the paperwork that qualifies them for free and reduced lunch. And then we would use that paperwork for transportation as well. I do not see us just opening that transportation service wide open like the food service is, because it's not federally subsidized. So, but I'll touch bases with Annie to make sure that we have a plan for addressing that, Rebecca. That's a good point.
Cool, thanks.
All right, Gwen, no more questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Should we talk about insurance?
Oh, do we want to talk about insurance? That's where the really good news is. Sorry. So as you look at this report, it doesn't look like it's really good news because it shows a cash deficit of $855,000. And so the reports that follow this statement of financial position has a lot of the detail in it that that spans the last, well, since from July 1st until April. So there's a lot of data, a lot of information about all the different revenue sources and all the different expenditures. But at the end of the day, the bank account tells you whether or not you're making any money. And so this negative balance was very concerning. So Scott Hawes, who's our insurance consultant, did a little bit of digging for us to figure out what claims are still out there that have been turned over to our stop loss reimbursement insurance company. And interestingly enough, what we should receive from the stop loss coverage prior to the end of June is right at this 830,000. So that means that we should get, at the end of the year, we should get very close to a zero balance. And depending on how May and June go, we might even have some money in this account to start off the new year. So that's really, really good news because that was very concerning. We don't want to go backwards on the progress that we made over the last year. So, and as you scroll down through these reports, they're broken up into a combined report that covers everything. There's a report on just the medical revenues and expenditures. There's a report on just the Care Here clinic expenditures. We do have a call with Care Here on the 9th of June in the afternoon. I think 2 o'clock is our bi-weekly meeting, and they will be going over the data after 1 year operation of the clinic. So I think that'll be some interesting information. If anyone wants to join us for that, just send me an email. We'll make sure you get the link because it will be a Google Meet. And I think just all in all, the health insurance is going to end on a good note. So a lot of work by a lot of people, and it's moving in the right direction. So questions about the health insurance? There's a lot of detail there if you want to dig in and familiarize yourself with it.
All right. Looks like Amy has a question. Amy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, yes, I have a question, Gwen, and maybe it's for Jack, if Jack's on. With the Affordable Care Act and all the premiums have been lowered, I think as part of the coronavirus relief bills from Congress. Is that an option for the teachers? Like, is that kind of something for us to be, I know we're self-funded, but is that something that schools cannot participate in? I think Jack mentioned something and I'm still confused on that point.
So Jack might answer, but also if you have more than 50 employees, Amy, you have to provide health insurance benefit. And so while our people certainly have the option to go to the marketplace and look at their coverage, you know, based on what their family needs are and what they're currently paying at the district and what they might be able to get at the marketplace. I think it would be a rare employee that could do better at the marketplace. And actually, if we have employees who do go to the marketplace, then the school district ultimately ends up paying a premium because of that. It's basically a fine, right? We're required to have premiums that are affordable as comparison to the marketplace. So Scott Hawes always makes sure, between Scott and Bromley, they always look at is our single coverage in the affordable range as defined by the Affordable Care Act. So we have to stay in that range. And then again, if an employee chooses to go to the marketplace for one reason or another, then ultimately we end up paying a fine for that. So.
Oh, and so that's so interesting. So the school district can't just pay part of the premium at the marketplace to be meeting our legal responsibilities. We actually have to provide our own insurance. All right, well, that's really interesting. Thanks, Gwen.
This
You want to add on to that?
This is Jack. As a large employer in a group plan, the small, narrow group that could possibly benefit by the marketplace would be part-time, low income, and large family combination. So it'd be very unique. And like Gwen had said, then the employer has would need to participate in that. But that qualified group is very small and unique, and it does occur, but it's very infrequent.
Thank you, Jack. Ursula?
I was just going to add into that, and part of it is I would need somebody that maybe knew a little more to confirm if this is correct, but kind of adding on to what Gwen said, which is that the school district has to offer insurance. And when you go on to the Affordable Care Act website to sign up, one of the questions they ask you is, does your employer provide insurance? And so I think, but this is the thing I'm not sure of, but if your employer provides insurance, you can still get insurance through healthcare.gov, but I don't know that you get the tax rebate. So like they don't do the things that make it more affordable. Is that correct?
If Tracy's on, she might know the answer to that.
I think that that's correct. I mean, this is only from my own personal experience, and we talked about it a little bit in some of the insurance meetings. But it's a whole thing about like only if your insurance that's being offered through your employer is found to be unaffordable. And so the district always makes sure that the insurance that we're providing meets the parameters of affordable within what they're asking. And so if what if we're offering fits into that affordable thing, then you wouldn't still qualify for I think they're tax, what do they call them? Tax rebates. Yeah.
Premium tax credit.
premium tax credits. Yes, you don't qualify for those. And so then it's much more expensive.
I think, this is Amy again. I think what has always interested me is like if the school could pay the teachers' premiums for the Affordable Care Act, would that actually save the school money? Because a lot of those maximums are $8,000 a person or $9,000. So I've always wondered about.
The answer to that would be, Amy, the answer to that would be no, because of the people that are on the marketplace have to enter their gross income. And the eligibility comes down to, does your employer offer something? Or the school district would have to refuse group health to everybody, which is very unlikely to occur. And second is the income levels of everybody varies so much that the only ones that can benefit from the marketplace are those that are low income and large families, because it's a combination of that. Now, could the school district refuse group insurance? I suppose they could. Would the premiums be, how would the premiums on the marketplace compare to what the school district is currently paying out? I'm under the impression that the premiums for some individuals on the marketplace or families could be in that $2,000 range on a monthly basis, which makes the school district plan extremely affordable for them and makes the marketplace extremely out of reach for them.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks.
Any
So
other questions?
this is Tracy. Ursula, do you feel like you got your question answered?
I think so. Do you know that answer, that if your employer offers insurance, then you don't qualify for the premium tax credit?
Yes. And when we're talking about the affordable coverage, we're also talking about employee only. And it's actually a very complicated formula. It's not something that you can apply to an individual. It's based on your lower income employees and what percentage of their salaries are based on the premium. So it's not an easy formula. And I also wanted to say, Amy, I am not too sure. The exchange was never set up to replace employer insurance. And so I don't know. I think that I'm just saying, I'm not too sure, but I think that we would receive some penalties. I don't think that an employer can just say that they can't offer insurance and that everybody goes onto the exchange. I could be wrong, but I think that there's some ramifications for that. It was never intended to supplement an employer's insurance program.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Tracy.
All right. Next on our agenda is the human resources and personnel, and this is personnel action items. Any questions on new hires, resignations, retirements, terminations, changes in contract, and requests for leave?
No.
Would someone entertain a motion to approve those?
This is Kim. I'll go ahead and entertain to move to approve the personnel action items as presented.
Thank you, Kim. Do I hear a second?
This is Mark. I'll second that.
We'll give that to Mr. Mark Cornick. Further discussion? Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ursula?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
I vote yes. Rebecca Linden?
Aye.
Sue Corrigan?
Aye.
Will Hyatt? Will, are you there? All right, we'll come back. Amy Waller?
No, I unmuted properly.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Will. Amy?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
All right, by my count, that is all trustees passed unanimously. Next on the agenda is the assistant superintendent hire recommendation. Mr. Hill?
Yes, I am excited to present Matt Jensen for hire as our new assistant superintendent joining our central office team. Matt has 17 years of experience in education, the last 7 as the superintendent of Big Fork Public Schools. We had a 16-member search committee that screened 13 applicants, and we interviewed 3, and Matt was selected as our finalist. References were glowing. Follow-up reference checks by me were equally as glowing, and had a lot of people with a lot of good things to say. I even received unsolicited emails and texts from people during the process speaking very highly of Matt. And he's also a Flathead High graduate. So if approved tonight, that would make 2 assistant superintendents who previously graduated from Flathead High School. I don't know what that says about our district, but I really like it. The financial implications, we are recommending that he be placed on step 5 of the administrative salary matrix. That is based in part on his experience. And I asked Matt for his current contract and to get an idea of total comp that he currently makes as an assistant or as a superintendent at Big Fork. This would put him at about $4,300 more coming to our district than what he was making there. And with that, that includes a 1% on the 403B.
Any questions for Micah?
No.
Okay, and this was vetted through personnel?
This went through personnel and finance.
Okay. All right, would someone care to make a motion?
This is Sue. I
Yes.
will move to hire Matt. Oh.
Sue, go ahead.
I gotta get quicker on pushing those buttons, I guess. But I moved to hire Matt Jensen as an assistant superintendent for the contract year 2021, 2022, and place him on step 5 of the assistant superintendent salary matrix.
Thank you, Sue. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that. Mouthful there.
All right, that's Mr. Mark Hornick, second in that. Further discussion? All right, Ursula, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mark, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
I vote yes. Kim?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Are there any voting nay? By my count, that is all 11 trustees passing unanimously. Well, congratulations, Matt. We'll have to pass that on. I don't see him online, but great addition. And just as a side note, back in 2004, he was my neighbor.
Matt would have been here tonight, but he is at a band concert or choir concert, I believe. So he was taking care of his kids.
Okay. Look forward to him in the central office come July 1st. Contracts. We've got some district-wide ones. Let's see. And Mike, are you presenting these?
You're muted, Micah.
Gwen, you are?
Yeah, I can do it. So the first one is with Copper Forge Underground LLC, and that is to complete and pave the sophomore parking lot at Flathead High School. And the bid amount is there on the screen, $156,354.04. And this will come out of the high school building fund where the bond dollars are held, because this was part of the goal to increase the parking over at Flathead High School. This was the only bid that was received. They did have walked through, and they did have 3 companies interested. But at the end of the day, we only received a bid from one. Those companies are busy, much like all of the other people working construction in the Flathead Valley right now. So And Morrison and Merrily did vet this vendor and are very comfortable with the work that they've done. And believe that this will be done well and timely, and they highly recommend approval of this contract.
And can you kind of walk us through the other two contracts?
Sure.
And my hope is we could just make one motion to pass them all.
Sure, good idea. So the next one is State Clean School Bus Grant Agreement. And this is actually Kalispell Public School is carrying this grant through the process for Harlow's, who is one of our busing contractors. But interestingly enough, this grant program will allow private vendors, private owners to access these dollars if they do so in conjunction with a school district for whom they transport children. And we've done several of these in the past. It's been a while since we've done them. Kalispell used this process to replace some of our older buses and get them off the roads. Part of the requirement of this is that that a bus will be destroyed and they have to provide proof, videos, pictures, so on, to show that the bus was actually destroyed, to reduce the vehicles with high emissions when they're used over the roadways. So this is a grant process that we've done before, and we're happy to bring this forward for Harlow's so that they can replace one of their older buses. And of course, they're buses that are hauling some of our students. So it's a win-win. And the third one is the contract with Commercial Energy to provide natural gas for Kalispell Public Schools. We've been using Commercial Energy, which is a small gas company north of Cathay. And we've been purchasing gas from them. I think this is our third contract. The first one might have been either a 3 or 5 year, then we had a 2-year contract, and we're back now with another 2-year contract. So we compare these prices to Northwest Energy, because that is, the other most obvious option. And we found that this price is about 79 cents less per decatherm than what Northwest Energy is currently charging. We do contract with Northwest Energy because they own the lines that the gas moves through. So we work with both Northwest Energy and Commercial Energy in this process. We did have another company, Big Sky Energy, that approached us, that's been working with some schools across the state, and they could not meet this price. So I think this is a good contract for the next 2 years, and I would encourage you to accept the contract as well.
All right, trustees, are there any questions for Gwen about these contracts?
No.
It is an action item, so we will take public comment, prefer public comment to questions. So, Mr. Pandino.
Sean.
I guess I do have a question. Is that for the buses, is that specific to Harlow's, or can other private contractors like, say, Trinity Lutheran or Stillwater Christian upgrade their buses and take advantage of that credit as well?
It is for public schools and the contractors who transport students for public schools. So
Okay.
They would not be able to participate.
Thank you.
All right, is there a trustee who'd be willing to make a motion to approve all contracts as presented?
I so move.
Who is that?
Rebecca Linden.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca made a motion. Do I hear a second?
This is Kim, I second.
Thank you, Kim. Further conversation? Jack, how do you vote?
Yes.
Amy Waller,
Aye.
Will Hyatt,
Aye.
Sue Corrigan,
Aye.
Rebecca Linden.
Aye.
I vote yes. Kim Wilson,
Aye.
Scott Warnell,
Aye.
Ursula Wild,
Aye.
Diane Morton Stout,
Aye.
Mark Cornick.
Aye.
I believe that's all 11 trustees that voted unanimously positive to pass the contracts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is KMS Musical Director Stipend.
So this is a request brought forth by Kalispell Middle School, and the second page of this request speaks to the rationale behind their request, which is mostly to keep the student to staff ratio down. Right now, they have 2 musical directors, and their musicals are very popular and have a lot of participation. As you can see there, 69, 70, and 68 students participating in the 2 directors. That's 35 students per director. Keep everybody going in the right direction and engaged at each of the practices. And then, of course, the presentations as well. So they're asking for 1 additional. They do use volunteers, and but volunteers are volunteers, and they come on the days when it works into their schedule. And it's important to have good coverage for the number of students that's there. I think this is a very sound request. And so we're requesting 1 additional stipend. And Kelly, if you scroll back to the cover page, the cost on that is $22.42.22.
So Gwen, so we're approving the stipend. Are we also approving an increase in overall stipends? Or are we just kind of saying, hey, we can spend this money if there's money available in the existing budget?
This is the stipends itself. Of course, there's already 2 of them, and they've been through the stipend committee process. And this tonight is you approving to add this to the current stipend budget in the amount of this $2,200, and then 1 additional person in that program.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca?
Yeah, I just, because of the rationale they gave here of the ratio, I just wanted to see if the activities director of the various schools or the principals or whoever keeps an eye on we're keeping within our ratios, or if it's always coming from a teacher asking for an increase, an additional stipend because their numbers have grown out of control.
I believe that their activities director definitely looks at the data of every single program and the number of students that are interested, and as compared to the number of adults that are available to work with them. And but there's probably also a component where the musical directors themselves would sit down and meet with the activities director and propose or request an additional stipend. And I think this request was twofold, from the administration as well as the adults responsible for the music.
And Gwen, did this go through the stipend committee?
It doesn't, because the stipend itself has already been approved and placed on the stipend schedule. So it really only went to finance because it's a budget, has budget ramifications.
Okay. Ursula?
So I'm sorry, I guess I didn't understand quite the answer to Lance's question. It has budget ramifications because we are increasing the stipend budget. Is that, I'm sorry.
Yes, we are increasing the stipend budget by that $2,242.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you so much. That makes more sense.
Ursula and Lance, this is Tracy.
Hey, Tracy.
And the way that I look at the stipend committee is they recommend to create the bucket, right? So this position has already been created a long time ago. And then it's up to the district to determine how many people they actually place in that bucket or place in that position. They may only need 1 person, or they may need multiple people. And a good example of that is like the football coach, the assistant coaches. So we have 1 stipend listed on the index, but we have multiple people that fill that position.
Okay. Thank you,
Sorry,
Tracy.
but so Tracy, if we add more people though, that takes money away from somewhere else. Like like in the stipend committee meetings, that was the impression I had, is that there's only so much money and it has to be split between all the stipends, but this is alleviating that pressure. Is that right?
No, so that's when we're creating a new stipend, and that would be the determination as to whether or not the board would increase the stipend budget. Gwen is actually bringing forward a recommendation to increase the stipend budget by $2,242. So there's difference between what the committee role is versus the ongoing operation of those stipended positions. So if we have an existing stipend position, it's up to the district and the ADs to determine how many individuals they need to pay. And so they're asking for an additional person here.
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad that this is coming forward, because that was that's one of my concerns with the stipends, is that there's, it seems as though this was something that was going to need to happen. So it's great to see that this is being addressed. And I will just throw it out there that today at the tour of Edgerton, our student tour guide told us the thing that she was most excited about was the KMS musical.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I guess I'm still trying to get clarity, because as I understand it, yeah, I get what Tracy's saying about we create the bucket and then the board has the budget. I guess it seems generally it's the activities director who sort of decides if they're adding another football coach or musical director. So I also am a little confused as to why this is coming before the board. I mean, I'm all for it. They absolutely need it. I just think normally this is done by shuffling money. So that's why I'm a tad confused.
Can I take a shot at that?
Please.
So, and I apologize for the confusion. The request actually came from Ann Casper, the middle school activities director, and Gwen is presenting it. And I think one of the things that we're acknowledging is that sometimes our programs grow, and so does the need to provide more supervision and support to our students as those programs grow. When you look at the rationale on the student to advisor ratio, you're sitting at around 34, 35 students to one person. And so in keeping with, just our liability for supervision, keeping the kids on track, doing all the things that they need to do, this is a position that they really felt like they needed to add to continue to be able to do this program. Otherwise, and it's already, I'll call it a cut program. They can only take so many kids. And Tracy Snipstead has done an amazing job of trying to include as many kids as possible, double casting the shows and running multiple shows each time she does it. So I'm hoping that helps clarify that this isn't just about shuffling people around. There certainly is that ability in some programs. For example, maybe one year a middle school, they don't have as many students go out for volleyball. And so they don't need as many stipends in volleyball, but they might have more students in basketball. So they eliminate one stipend in volleyball and they shift it to basketball. There's not really the ability to shift with the musical stipend.
Thank you, Micah. That cleared it up perfectly. And just one tiny comment. Math Counts, another KMS program, is also in the 20 to 30 students per teacher range. If at some point, want to think about that one.
Yeah, I think if there came a request, it would be certainly something for the board to consider.
Thank you, Rebecca. Amy?
Yes, I was just wondering, I'm under the impression that whatever increase we increase maybe to the base or some percentage, we also increase the stipend. So our stipend is growing every year, whether it's the COLA or whatever. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, so if the base increases, the dollar amount on the stipend index increases as well. They're tied together in the collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you. Anything else, Amy?
No, thanks.
Okay. So elementary trustees, Would someone care to make a motion?
I'll make that motion. This is Ursula. I move that we approve one additional stipend for a musical director at Kalispell Middle School.
Thank you.
This is Diane. I'll second that.
Thank you, Diane. Further conversation? Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kim?
Aye.
I vote yes. Rebecca?
Yes.
Sue?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Ursula?
Aye.
I believe that's all 7 elementary trustees that voted favorably, so passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Surplus property.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Yes, and we typically do this a couple of times a year. If there are items in the district that are no longer useful to us or that actually need to be thrown away, given away, or can be sold, we put together a list, bring it forward to the trustees as required by state law. Once you officially declare these items surplus property, then I place an ad in the local newspaper for a 2-week period of time. And if we hear no comment or no dissent about declaring these items surplus, then at the end of that 2 weeks, we can dispose of them, depending on what they are and whether they have any value, etc. And so you see on this list, Flathead High School lockers, those will be taken out this summer. Some of those will be kept and placed in other places in the district. Some of them simply need to be thrown away because they really are not usable. And there might be some to sell. And Greg wanted to get out in front of this and be able to dispose of them as they take them out and not move them to storage. And then later, get permission to dispose of them. At LEC, they had some fire brick that they were going to try to do something with, and they never ended up finding a project that was perfect for that. So they have some fire brick they would like to get rid of. We bought quite a bit of new custodial equipment over the last year, and some of those items need to be thrown away, and some of them might have a little bit of value to them. Technology items, those would all be things that can no longer be updated. And typically what the IT department does with those is sell them to a vendor that might be able to use the parts and so on. So we do that every year or two and clean up technology items that are no longer being used. And then every so often we get a stockpile of outdated textbooks. There are companies that buy used textbooks, but usually by the time Kalispell Public Schools is done with their textbooks, they're even beyond the companies that buy and recycle them in one way or another. So we're just covering all of our bases here. And if we can get approval for this evening, we'll move it forward to the newspaper and dispose of some of these items rather than store them.
Okay. Any questions for Gwen?
No.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Lance, this is Kim. I move to declare the listed property as surplus and move forward with the disposal process per state law in this board action.
Thank you, Kim. Do I hear a second?
This is Sue. I'll second that.
Thank you, Sue. Further conversation? Amy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Sue Corrigan?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
I vote yes. Kim?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Ursula?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
I believe by my count, that is all 11 trustees voting affirmative. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance.
Elementary only consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve by elementary trustee.
This is Sue.
Oh, go ahead, Sue.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Ursula seconds that. Any conversation?
Just a quick comment. I said this in finance, but they didn't fix the fact that their numbers are wrong on the thing that they say they're making. Yeah, they say they're charging $5,000, getting $5,000, and making $2,500. So anyway, at some point somebody should look at those numbers and fix them.
Okay. Thank you. Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye, and oops, my comment was on the Edgerton Book Fair. Sorry, we're in the wrong consent agenda. I vote aye on this one. Move my comment to the next comment.
Last part of the consent agenda. So, Sue,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Ursula,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Kim.
Aye.
I also vote yes. All 7 trustees, elementary trustees voted aye. Consent agenda district-wide. Any questions for administrators? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
This is Rebecca Linden. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second by Amy.
Amy Waller seconds it. Thank you. Further conversation? Will Hyatt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sue Corrigan,
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Kim Wilson,
Aye.
Scott Warnell,
Aye.
Ursula Wild,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
and Amy.
Aye.
By my count, it's a unanimous decision to pass the consent agenda. Okay, public comment.
Oh, before public comment, I just wanted to make a comment saying, I believe that was Amy Waller's last vote as a trustee. And I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure working with you and thank you for your service.
Yes. So this is the time for comment on public matters that are not on the agenda. With members of the audience are encouraged to briefly address the trustees on an issue that is not on the agenda and within our jurisdiction. Please do not attempt to address issues concerning legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Is anyone wishing to address the Board of Trustees? You have 3 minutes for comments.
Sean Pandina, go ahead.
Hi, this is actually Sean and Trish, so I would like 6 minutes. We've composed a letter together. It takes about 5 minutes to read it. I've accepted the position that God's given me. I'm the barbed spine of the jumping Chwala cactus. My youth I spent in the deserts. I learned at an early age that if you get too close to a jumping Chwala cactus, you'll live to regret it. When you come too close to the Chwala, you have an unpleasant experience. The cactus actually sends out barbed spine needles that pierce your flesh with barbs that prevent you from removing it. That is me. I'm the Chwala in your flesh that you cannot remove. See, I'm comfortable with losing the election because I have latched on and I'm not going away. On May 19th, Elsie Arneson wrote a letter to all superintendents and school boards across Montana. The OPI strongly suggests that school districts across Montana rescind or allow to expire any existing face covering mandates and develop policy that make wearing a face mask and other coverings optional, voluntary, and a matter of family choice. At the May 20th Board Governance Committee meeting, I addressed this letter to Lance Isaac. If he was going to put revising the 1905 policy update to make masks optional on the next agenda. Lance responded that School District 5 has no intention of making face coverings optional this school year, and that they may make face coverings optional next school year. Rebecca Linden quickly chimed in, stating that if School District 5 does not follow CDC guidelines, they are at risk of losing their ESSER funding. Lance Isaac further reiterated that school board policy is controlled at a local level. Wow. In my opinion, the cat's out of the bag. Masking students and teachers had nothing to do with safety of staff or students. It had everything to do with the $10 to $15 million that the district is receiving in ESSER funding. Well, I guess we know what the price of harming students and teachers is, somewhere around $10 million. Lance, I find it particularly interesting that you would stand on local control at this point. I've been telling this board all year that according to Article 10, Section 8 of the Montana Constitution, you have local control. However, all year you stood on governor orders for making them on county health board recommendations as those eroded under your stance on masking. You make this final stance. You now have local control. In direct opposition to a strong recommendation from the OPI to make masks optional, your hypocrisy sickens me. The truth is, yes, you have local control. You never had to mask students. They could have been mask free all year, but it's not really the locals controlling this board, is it? Rather, it's being controlled by the federal government and the CDC. Again, now the cat is out of the bag. This has been all about the money. You have made this stance so you can receive millions of federal dollars.
So Sean, do we get to hear from Trish? Trish has 3 minutes now.
Right here.
I haven't gone 3 minutes. Further proof of this, Lance, Micah Hill, we're happy to meet with John Tester down at the brewery to make sure the district was getting as much money as the federal government was willing to send their way. What are some of the things this board's done with the money? Well, School District 5 was sitting in a budget deficit, unable to make ends meet. However, that did not stop the board from giving raises.
Lance, I think it's appropriate to have Jason cut him off unless Trish is going to speak instead. They're each entitled to 3 minutes.
Okay, fair enough. Trish?
I haven't even gone 3 minutes.
We're doing this together.
But
She's
nice
right here.
stopwatch you have.
Well, with all the interruptions. Okay, she can pick up from here.
Okay.
So what are some of the things this board has done with this money? Well, SD5 was sitting in a budget deficit, unable to make ends meet. However, that did not stop the board from giving raises to the staff in excess of $1 million, closer to 1.5 million, in fact. How is this okay? Because we will make that up with ESSER funds, and we will also send out an elementary levy that hopefully passes, which it did very narrowly. However, the truth is you are still in a deficit even with the levy passing. You also gave additional raises to Micah Hill and Gwen Anderson, despite not having the funds to pay for such raises. Once again, it is okay. We have ESSER funding to who cares if we are harming children as long as they keep wearing the mask so the CDC does not cut our funding. We are going to end up stuck dependent on doing whatever the federal government dictates to do to you. They are controlling you all with freshly printed money. And now the latest in the atrocities against children, you have allowed vaccination clinics to operate in the high schools. Why? You do not know the 0 humans under the age of 24 have died with COVID in the state of Montana, not even one. However, the COVID shots have killed or maimed multiple children across the county already. If you were actually concerned with the student safety, you would be fighting against the vaccination clinics in the schools. Yet you are welcoming them with open arms. Guess what? You have once again been notified. You are going to harm or maybe even kill students with these vaccine clinics. This board should put a stop to SD5 administrative decision to have these clinics in our schools. Stop this before it's too late. As soon as a student is maimed or killed, the blood will be on your hands for allowing these clinics indoors. Look, I am not an evil vaxxer. In fact, my children have been vaccinated for various different things like measles, mumps, etc. However, these are actually vaccinations that spent years to develop and fully approved and have a long track record. This new injection is still experimental. Yes, it is still classified as an EUA, emergency use authorization. To allow the government to experiment on the youth of Montana is wrong, and you are playing with
10
fire.
more seconds, Trish.
God forbid government to the experiment on the youth of Montana is wrong, and you are playing with fire. God forbid one of our students should die from
Thank you
these
for the
shots.
public comment. I appreciate it.
However, in my opinion, if you keep allowing.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the public? Okay, one panelist. Amy, would you like to address the trustees?
Yes, I would. First, I want to apologize for saying goodbye last meeting because I'm still here. But I do want to, again, just show my appreciation for all of you. And I am so proud that I was a very small part of what we accomplished this last year. And I think I want to counter what you just heard, that if I were going to continue and I was faced with the decision of whether we go to stage 3 or whatever decision it is as we continue to make decisions for the best interest of the children. And I want to just say, I have no doubt that everybody on this board, you are not worried about the money. You are all worried about what is best for the children. And that's why I got a little choked up last meeting, is because you are all so such an incredible team. And I really appreciate everything you've done. I am so happy for the results of the election, because everybody but me got reelected. And I know you all have the best interest of the students at heart. But for me, if I was going to make future decisions when it comes to masks or no masks, or what we're going to do with the school, it is what we all listened to. It was the advice of the medical professionals. It is the pediatricians. It is the CDC. They are the medical professionals. And there's other medical professionals that disagree with them. I understand that. But you have the governor, you have all these different entities that are trying to give us information. But to me, as a biologist with an advanced degree, I want to hear the medical professionals about what we should be doing during a pandemic to keep our students and staff safe. So thank you for your service.
And Amy, thank you for yours. We've gone through a lot. We've accomplished a lot, and thank you for your service. You'll be missed. Any other public comment?
Amy, this is Tracy Scott, and I just want to say the same thing that Lance just did. You will definitely be missed. I truly hope that you consider rerunning in the future. So we would love to have you back on the board.
Hey, I'm trying.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is seating of newly elected trustees. I assume everybody made it down to see Jack at the county and got sworn in and signed in.
They have, Lance, and I have all of the certificates that prove that. And for those of you who I haven't delivered your certificates, they will be put in the mail tomorrow. So we're all good to move forward.
Okay. So we've got 5 new seated trustees, 1 new trustee to School District 5. Next on the agenda is the reorganization of the board. First item is to elect the chair. Is there anyone who would wish to make a nomination?
Hey, Lance, before you move forward with that, can Jason make sure that Heather is activated as a board member?
Yep, I was just pulling her over, so she should have access to that. There she is.
We checked that out earlier. He could do it with the snap of the fingers.
That's right.
Any nominations for board chair?
Yes, this is Diane. Can you hear me?
We can hear you twice.
Sorry about that. I'm having computer issues. That's my computer. Sorry about that. I wanted to make a motion. I move we elect Sue Corrigan, board chair.
So we have a nomination for Sue Corrigan.
And this is Kim. I'd like to second that.
Okay. It's more of a nomination rather than a motion at this point.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would wish to nominate a candidate?
Lance,
Okay.
I'd like to nominate Ursula.
Okay. Ursula, how do you feel about that?
I am very, very honored by the nomination, but with the current state of my personal life, I think that I will probably not have the time to fully, to give the position everything that I would hope to give it. So I'm very honored, and I would be very interested in the future to consider a leadership position.
And Sue, do you feel comfortable?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've had a lot of experience being chair or president of nonprofit boards and other organizations. So
Okay.
pretty confident, especially with such a good group.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right. We'll do a roll call vote then. Diane, how do you vote? Oh. Diane?
Let's give her just a second.
Okay, we'll come back.
She was, yep.
Ursula, how do you vote for Sue?
I vote aye for Sue.
Scott?
Aye.
Kim Wilson?
Aye.
I also give a hearty aye. Rebecca?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Diane?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, for Sue.
All right, Sue, you have unanimous support from the Board of Trustees to chair this fine organization. With that, we'll turn the meeting over to you.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. But let me just say that I am humbled by your confidence in me. I hope I can live up to the expectations. I'm going to need everybody's help moving forward. So the next item on the agenda is nominations for the vice chair.
Oh, Sue, this is Rebecca Linden. I had a comment first. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for your service, Lance, and good luck to you, Sue.
Thank you. Lance, did you have a comment? Oh, no. Okay.
I would just like to nominate somebody.
Oh, okay. Nominations for vice chair.
I would nominate Jack Fallon.
Okay.
I'll
Is there-
second that. This is Will.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second, so we'll do a roll call vote. So Lance, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mark, how do you vote?
Aye.
I'm on the wrong one. Ursula, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Heather, how do you vote?
Aye.
Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
I don't think Amy gets a vote anymore, correct?
No, but I would vote aye.
Will, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jack, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay.
Hey, Sue, you forgot me.
Who did I forget?
Diane,
Oh, hey, Diane, how do you vote?
definitely aye.
Okay, excellent. So all 11 trustees have voted unanimously for Jack as the vice chair. Any comments, Jack?
None.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I see the appointment of the district clerk.
I move appointment of Gwen Anderson as a district clerk for the
Okay,
upcoming
thank you for
school
the
year.
motion. Is there a second?
I'd second that. This is Lance.
Okay, thank you, Jack and Lance. Let's do a roll call vote. Let's go with Diane first. How do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, Rebecca,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Ursula,
Aye.
Will,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Kim,
Aye.
let's see, who am I missing here?
You're missing Lance already.
Oh, all right, Lance, how do
I
you
vote aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I vote aye, and Jack.
Aye.
Okay. All 11 have voted unanimously to appoint Gwen Anderson as the district clerk. Our next meeting date, is that what that agenda item means? Set the meeting date?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Micah.
So it'll be.
So our next meeting is June.
So that would be for this next school year. The meeting dates for this school year are already set, so it'd be for the next school year.
Okay.
Beth, is that on that 21-20? Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay. So are we just approving this schedule?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve this meeting schedule for next year.
This is Will. I so move.
Lance will
Thank
second
you.
it.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Lance. Okay. Any discussion? Okay, so Jack, how do you vote?
Yes.
Diane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Heather, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ursula,
Aye.
Will,
I vote aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Kim,
Aye.
Lance,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, committee organization. And assignment discussion. So I think the usual procedure here is if board members will email me their preferences for the committees they would like to serve on. And then I will do my best to assign you to your preference. And if not, who knows where you'll end up. So if you will just email me those preferences, I would appreciate it.
Lance has his hand up.
Thank you, Lance.
Yeah, I wonder if Beth can send out the current committee schedule so that we kind of know the times and dates. That way we
Good
can take a
idea.
little closer at our work schedule to see what fits.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I was doing it as you spoke.
And usually I think we serve on 3 committees. But you're welcome to go to any of them. Okay, upcoming meetings. That's just information. There's our committee meetings. And I think we canceled the curriculum meeting, so pay attention to those dates. Okay. So that looks like everything on the agenda for today. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Will. I move we adjourn the meeting.
This is Rebecca. I'll second it. And thank you, Sue, for doing a great job running your first meeting.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.